Namaskar. Swagatam. Welcome everyone. We are on to another enlightening session about lighting, and we have a great set of panelists here. My name is Amardeep Dugar. I'm a lighting designer, and I'm going to be your host and moderator for this session. So let's start this session by a few round of introductions with our panelists. Let's start with my panelist on my right. Please introduce yourselves.
Hi, my name is Vigneshwar. I'm the founder and principal architect of A+V, or Architecture Plus Value, based in Chennai. We predominantly do a lot of housing projects, institutions, interiors and commercial spaces inside city. We have a built footprint of around 2 million plus square feet, and I'm glad to be part of this very interesting panel which is here. Thank you.
Wow, welcome aboard.
Hi, good evening everybody. I'm Suraksha Acharya, founding principal architect of Midori Architects. So we've been championing the green approach in all our projects. So we do a lot of architecture, interiors, and our unwavering commitment to green is what sets us apart. And we have a team of about a young creative team in Chennai, and we're looking forward to doing a lot more projects, keeping lighting in mind, and I'm very happy to be part of this panel. So thank you for having me here.
Thank you for coming. Welcome aboard.
Hi, good evening. My name is Pavitra Venkatesh. I represent the developers. So I'm from Mahindra Life Spaces. I'm an architect myself, and having moved from architectural studios to developer, it's a totally different journey. Get to see the both ends of life when you're designing, as well as now that you are getting feedback from the customers. It's great to be here, and as Suraksha mentioned, we are also very leading when it comes to green design, sustainable architecture, and happy to be part of this forum. Thank you.
We need a diverse panel as much as possible.
Yes.
Hi, my name is Sunaina. I'm the founder and director of DS Design Consultants based in Chennai. It's easier for me to say that we do everything other than individual residences. So we are in all sectors, industries, commercial, a lot of corporate interiors and office interiors. We're looking at sustainability, designing for WELL certification. These are all important aspects that we need to consider, and of course lighting forms a very important part of this design. So happy to be part of this, to have a discussion and get diverse views from everybody on this.
Yes. Myself, Gokul Murali KN. I head Edifice Chennai. Edifice is spread across the country. Our head office in Mumbai, we are almost 200 plus architects. We are doing multiple disciplinary of designs, starting from master planning, urban designs, doing architecture, interiors, corporate developers, whatever, but just the consultancies. We're doing design consultancy, pure design consultants. Happy to be part of this session. Let's see how informative it is.
Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Hello, myself architect Uma Chakravarti. I'm professor and I'm heading School of Architecture in Chennai. So it's very nice to see all the vibrance of this particular panel, and thank you to be part of this panel.
Sundar Vedan, I founding principal architect of DFX Architecture based in Chennai, probably the smallest firm here, but we focus a lot on performative design, which is to say it's about spatial organization and more of a focus on the experience of spaces and stuff, which extends to sustainable design as well. Glad to be part of this. Thanks for having me.
Welcome everybody. It's really exciting to see this really diverse set of panelists with so many different varied backgrounds, and I'm really honored to be taking this forward as a discussion. So today's topic of discussion is human-centric lighting, and I tweak this a little. I call it credible potential or incredible hype. The reason why I want to tweak this is human-centric lighting is like the buzzword currently doing in the lighting industry for the past 5, 7, 10 years. And there are lighting scientists who've been talking about it. They say that, and they argue that human-centric lighting, when you consider visual and non-visual aspects of light, it's a very credible thing to do. And it is something which is really going to cause a lot of advantages. but sometimes it's also used, or like I would say most of the times used as a marketing gimmicky phase, and literally people are health washing or hog washing using this word for human-centric lighting. So, and we have a lot of architects, we have designers, we have so many people in the panel. They're all wondering as to how much of it is credible information which can be used for human-centric lighting, and how much is just some incredible hype which is just used as a marketing term. So with this discussion, we're trying to get down to the basics of human-centric lighting. I have a set of few questions, and I'll probably throw these questions at my panelists. The idea is to get a healthy set of discussion going, and let's see where this communication or discussion takes us forward. So for the first question, I'm going to be targeting this question at Architect Sundar Velan, Architect Uma, and Architect Gokul Murali. The reason being, we have one panelist who has a small firm, one panelist who has a large multi-city firm, and one of them panelists is an educator. So we'll get to hear three different perspectives on the same question. So the first question is, I studied architecture as my first degree, as my bachelor's. I studied something called anthropometrics. When I had to design my first chair, I had to look at my body dimensions to design a chair. And then I went into ergonomics. So everything that I studied, every design that I studied was human-centric. So I'm wondering, isn't all design human-centric? And if the question is yes, how different is human-centric design, which is the buzzword today, different from modern design or traditional design? Can we have your views on that? So, starting with Mr.
Yeah, if I would like to. For me, lighting, as we see it, it's a part of the whole design exercise. So in our firm, or my endeavor about design is always focused on the experience of the space. So it starts from that, then comes everything else, all the layers of the materials and everything. So how does lighting or any of that integrates into the whole is a larger question. As far as traditional or modern is concerned, I think any design is human-centric by default. And even as a subconscious level, if you see all of our experience, it's always from our perspective. It's always anthropocentric, whether we realize it or not. But when we do it consciously as a design, as I see it, it differentiates only when you don't do careful design. Then it comes to become a little bit of a problem in using, whether it's space or lighting or whatever. So for me, it's an integrated thing, right from the technical stuff or to the experiential. So as an example, if I have to do any kind of design, if the brief is going to be about traditional, I'm not someone that really goes into mapping the traditional, but I try to see what, specifically if you're talking about lighting, what enhances the space and stuff like that. So it's a very integrated approach. The first there's the whole, then how everything else integrates into it would be my approach. So yes, it's a default.
Thank you for this word, and I'm really happy you use this word integrated, because there's some other thing that I like to say once I hear the answers from the other two panelists too.
Yeah.
Please, Architect Umar.
Actually, being academician, when we are teaching this particular lighting sessions to the students, we teach this like from the a decade ago and all this time. It's like two portions we teach. One is the source, another one is the light what is emitting. So when we see this itself, we can say, like, traditionally we are all concentrating on the source, how it will be. But now in modern we can say, like, we are hiding the light, hiding the source actually. So we are concentrating only the quality or the intensity of the light, how it is coming up. It's more of concentrating on the reflectance or the object quality. That is what we are looking to, more of ambience based. But when we are saying the other aspect, when we are talking teaching about the lighting to the students or to the industry, because the students only is coming up and then they're taking that as a solution and coming and practicing the lighting. So when the things are coming up, the understanding of that particular source and the reflectance factor. So these things are coming. The intensity of both the things are getting varied for traditional and what to say, like modern. So still we don't know, like tomorrow we might not have the source, but light will be coming. So that's what we are expecting the things.
So
That's
the
what
thing is, light is invisible. It needs to bounce off surface. It needs the architecture to be visible. So
Yeah.
as simple as that.
Yeah.
And it needs eyes also to see. That's
Of course.
Okay, so when to me, to answer your question, like what we were discussing about the human-centric design. So design itself is predominantly human-centric is what the question was, which I debate on it. So it was not supposed to be. When we started, the evolution started, it was all because of the environment that people started to get their shelters from safeguarding from the environment and the factors around them. So it is actually we are a social animal. So we have to be part of the environment and we have to learn how to define the environment and we build it accordingly. So it's not specific to a human, it is humanity or the social well-being of all together. So that's where the evolution started and people started going into the dens and then the safeguardings of that, and then the lights, to bring in the lights they got the glasses. So and now predominantly if you see from the modern era, from the traditional, we are now influenced, we are being influenced to Western cultures and we are not forgetting the environment now. What the local environment talks about, what is the need of the hour is being missed. That is my point of view when we say human-centric. So we are too much into sophisticated living rather than looking at what is apt for you, for the long, durable, sustainable living. That is where now carbon neutrals are all coming up. The sustainability is being talked about. That is for the first question answer. I'm talking about more on the lighting factor, human-centered lighting. Definitely technology has a good advantage to it. So we have a technology which brings in a daylight kind of scenario within your office space, wherein you feel that you are still at 12 o'clock time, but the time is 6 or 8 there in the outside. So those kind of technologies help us, but there should be a limit to it. So we have to see how, because there's a biological timer already running within our human.
Absolutely.
So we have to be cautious. We have to take care of ourselves. The efficiency that matters. Everyone works for the efficiency, but also the efficiency is better for a durable time when you have a biological clock running.
So I mean, if I'm to sum up what you're trying to say is that humans have to be in sync with the environment, with nature. And that's what is the right way of human-centric.
Yes.
And then your design that you design also has to be that. When you say human-centric,
so
there's a lot of environment that is also
Correct.
involved.
Correct.
Very good answer. Thank you very much for this.
Yeah, but at the same time, the productivity, when they're asking for productivity, they need that ambience and the lighting. So we need to bypass the environment somewhere, somehow. So that is how our lifestyle is going on actually. So we have to bypass that, but still, that is a wonderful answer actually.
Because
How does
I read this word that there is enough what the world provides for humans' needs, but is nothing it provides for humans' greed. So that's why we need to strike that balance. And I think that's a philosophical question. Let's not get into that because this panel will go on for hours then.
Right.
I'll move on to the next question. So, and this question is specifically targeted to architect Sunaina and architect Pavitra. Simply because we have one architect who's got a lot of experience in doing interior spaces, another architect who's doing a lot of exterior spaces. So let's see what the question has. So does human-centric lighting involve creation of personalized and adaptive spaces that cater to individual human preferences? And if it is yes, what possible design considerations need to be taken into consideration for the interior and the exterior spaces? Let's start with architect Sunaina.
That's a very interesting way to look at it, because when we're looking at interior spaces, especially, the function of the space defines how we want the human to perceive the light. So it is human-centric in a way that we want a certain, if it's a lounge space, we need the space to be more calm, we need to plan for the lighting, the lux levels, everything to be conducive for the user in that space to feel the kind of emotions that we want them to feel. Whereas if you're looking at a workspace, like he said, if you're looking at a factory where the production is the key, there of course it may be a 24-hour working in some of these spaces. So we need to maintain that ambient lighting that keeps the energy levels of the people who are working there at a constant. Which is where what he said is very relevant, because it kind of goes against the nature of the human. So it's debatable, is this human-centric? It's a question that I don't think has a right answer per se, because you're designing for the function and how you want the human to perceive and behave in that particular space. Whereas if you're looking at a gallery and the lighting for the gallery, it is only how you're trying to attract the artifact or whatever it is that you're trying to showcase, and how the human eye perceives it.
How you want people to behave around you.
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying.
So all of it is more about what you're expecting the human to behave in that environment, and as a result of that is how we design the lighting for the space, the furniture for the space, all the ergonomics, everything. Now, if you want them to be relaxed, we plan the sofas and other things, whatever it is that we're planning, we plan it at a certain height, certain level, coffee tables. All of this suddenly goes lower because you're trying to be more relaxed. Whereas the minute you're moving to a workstation, and nowadays it is so important as part of the ergonomics, most offices are looking at having height adjustable, simply because it is not normal for a person to be sitting for 8 hours at a desk. So you want them to be able to stand, you want them to be able to sit at a different height if required, and work. They have options of where they can work, whether at a high stool. So all of these alternatives are evolving because you want them to be able to have that comfort. Again, everything is designed to be human-centric, but again, the lighting is what plays an important role when you're trying to highlight a space, differentiate between a more relaxed environment, just a passage where you're just walking through, versus a work environment where you want them to be more sharp and attentive. So I think this does, and in a way, I think when it comes to exteriors, maybe she would touch upon it more, but when we design campuses and exterior, the function of the space becomes more what you want to highlight, whether it's the landscape, whether it's the building facade, all of those play more important role. Whereas it is adequate to make sure that there's enough light for the person to see, whether it is they're driving, then there is a certain lux level we maintain, whether if they're walking on a pathway, we need to maintain
security,
safety,
wayfinding,
those other things. And if it's a parking, then of course, based on the safety and the visual impact that you need, that you would go with a different, but otherwise the function of the space becomes a driving parameter.
Exterior is, especially after COVID, everybody wants to step out and spend more time outside, so that's the era that we have crossed lately. And while of course Sneha touched upon the functionality of the lighting and all, it's also important what kind of lighting we're putting in the facade, because while we're all talking about human centric, we're also missing out the important point that we are the only dwellers of this earth. There are others who are also equally part of citizens of the world, if I would say. So when you do the lighting for landscaping, using applighters, we do find consultants sometimes giving that, that's the high point or the wow point. Now, how do we actually encourage them not to use it, because that's actually not, it may be good for us, I may say wow, but at the end of the day, what is happening around the environment, that's something I think is super important. And it has, I think it's everybody kind of have started knowing it because sustainability has come in a way, but actually getting into details and finding this is more important, and that's where the exteriors play a very important. Now, even when we talk to customers, it's no longer that, what is the square foot of house I'm getting, what is the square area of public space I'm getting, how do I get me time in a common time, so how do you design beyond the lux level, how do you make it more naturally ventilated, naturally lit spaces, while of course in the evening times lighting is important, you need it for your functionality and safety and security as you mentioned, but beyond that, let's look at it overall, from the overall perspective, all of us are equal dwellers, and how we can be consciously designing spaces, exterior and interior, at the same time, not only the light pollution that I'm talking about, even for example the heat mitigation that is because of the lights, the amount of heat it dissipates on the paver and then reflects back into your house, and then it becomes a hot box, and then you switch on your AC to cool out, and so it is, you have to look at exterior, interior all together, and that's where I think as designers we need to get into a little more detail and focus on that.
Excellent answers, because it's really getting to, because with the first answer that we received about an integrated approach, human-centric lighting, a lot of scientists have kind of despised this word human-centric, because it really talks about the self-centered nature of humans. And what the CIE, the Commission of Illumination, which is based in France, they've coined a new word and they call it integrative lighting. Integrative lighting is probably the correct word because that's got visual amenity, visual equity, and all these aspects that you touched upon. And the aspect of light pollution, exterior lighting, what we've seen is that moonlight, on a moonlit night, the lux level is literally about 0.1 lux. And we are actually able to see enough. So why do we need those 50 or 100 lux on the exterior when we are perfectly able to see under the moonlight? And what we city dwellers miss is the starry sky. And that's something which is there. And that's where I've been working or advocating a lot for something called life-centric lighting. Because we are not the only living beings on the earth. Human beings is the measly planet. We are just probably 100 or 2,000 years. But their life has existed on this planet for billions of years. So ideally, it should be life-centric lighting or life-centric design rather than being just human-centric. So moving on to our final set of panelists, and this is going to be the third question. And this question I'd like to direct to Architect Vigneshwar and Architect Suraksha, because again, this brings in a different and a varied background of answers. Can you share examples of successful interdisciplinary collaborations that can be stated as good examples of human-centric lighting, which you have found? Starting with Architect Suraksha.
Okay. Yeah, so I agree with all of your points of view, and like you were saying, human-centric, it's come a very long way, and from the Thomas Edison's light bulb to today's AI technology with LEDs and all the hundreds of years of transformation in artificial lighting itself, we have a lot to take in as architects and interior designers. And you were mentioning about hype before, so there's a very thin line between the marketing spiel and actually getting good, creative, innovative solutions. And it's a very fine line that often gets blurred. And as architects, we have to be able to educate our clients and give them the awareness when something is not evidence-based.
Yes.
And so in our practice, we do a lot of evidence-based approaches to our not just ventilation and solar radiation, all of that, but mostly also daylight. That's the litmus test whether you have done a design well is based on all of those rules and parameters of design, but also if I put the skylight in this particular location, will I get the required lighting throughout? And how much of autonomy can one space have with daylight, so you don't need artificial lighting? So first thing is, how do you minimize that artificial lighting? And how do you make sure that energy efficient alternatives are used so that the consumption is as less as possible? And there have been many interesting collaborations that I have seen during my visits to different showrooms in places like Milan Fair, etc. There are great collaborations with CO Lux. I don't know if you've heard of them, and they have done some great work on how to mimic Mediterranean moonlight.
Coilux.
Yeah,
Coilux.
yeah. Maybe I'm saying it wrong, but we were just completely astounded that you can actually, in a basement, get the feel of a Mediterranean sun and the moon just with a click of a button. And that's what it's come down to. You can actually replicate a natural phenomenon, and our technology has gone that far, and it is surprisingly does give you that circadian rhythm. It does give you the physiological and biological effects that you would feel as if you were outside. And more as humans, we're spending almost 90% of our time indoors with offices and shopping centers, and we really don't get that natural systems in. And that's where you were mentioning about WELL certification comes in, and they've done a lot of research on how to make sure that the lighting is as productive for the humans, and so you can call it human-centric, but also life-centric. I like that word a lot, and that's a great thing. Also, Philips does a lot of collaborations, I think, with acoustic baffles and all kinds of interesting things that you can do in an interior perspective. So you can still have good auditory, but also you can have good lighting. And I'm a big fan of stretch ceiling, and there are schools that they've done a lot of work on what are the mood settings that should be during a specific time in the day, and how you actually automate this lighting so that the productivity level moves up. So there have been some very interesting collaborations. You can't just look at lighting as a decorative or a very functional thing. It has a huge biological level to it, and I think we have a long way to go to discover that. As
we just scratched the surface. Probably this is the tip of the iceberg. There's so much we need to learn about us, our own self, before we go about designing. Thank you so much. It's a great answer.
So yes, it's been a long and nice discussion, and few keywords were integrated design, human-centric, and I think as a designer and as an architect, the first thing which has to be thrown out is egocentric. So like when we want to do integrated design, the first thing we really need to look at is pushing our ego down and throwing it out the window. And I'll just, since you talked about case studies, I'll give 3 examples of work which we have done, and where fundamentally I was able to do really good work because I forgot that I was an architect. And I just put myself as a human being asking the question, how can I serve society better? Or how can I do this project better for the people who are going to use the space? Number 1 is I work a lot with developers. So like Pavitra is like I've seen several Pavitras across many developer organizations, and the first thing which we talk about when it comes to housing and lighting is forget artificial lighting, natural lighting. So we really focus very hard on getting the maximum amount of natural lighting and ventilation into each of these units. And today we are like literally that is going to be the crux of so many middle class and lower middle class families whom we are working with. So they are spending almost like 20 years of their life paying off that unit. So our challenge becomes, can I bring them the maximum amount of light and ventilation into their unit and give them the value for money which they are paying for, so that they have a slice of nature in their house? And that becomes a very interesting argument. And thankfully we have beautiful softwares which help us, you know, visualize the space and ensure that there is sufficient natural light and ventilation. Now moving into a totally different tangent, we were lucky to be the architects of a competition project which we won for a large convention center called GKS Convention Center in the city, which was around 1 lakh square feet, which I did with my friend Light Lab here. And in that, the first question which the client asked me when he saw the whole, it was like a 3,000 seating capacity center, was, I want the diamonds on my wife's necklace to spark. So that is like a very unique brief, right? And that is where the lighting comes in, the light designer comes in. So how do you get the diamond to sparkle? And that question like led on to us designing a fabulous ceiling, wherein the design was highlighting the bones of the building. So literally there was a 43-meter clear span which we achieved for the convention center using a beautiful portal frame. The structural engineer did a phenomenal job. So I decided that yes, he's done a great job, I have to highlight it. So the lighting focused on highlighting the truss and then creating an ambient lighting which Light Lab helped me. So it is very essential for us as architects to remove ourselves from the equation and say, okay, I don't know how to make diamond sparkle. I need to get an expert who can get the job done. So that is where second example. And third example which we are working on right now, which we are executing, is the ICU of a hospital. Now that scares me. None of the spaces which I have designed have people dying inside them. When you design an ICU, there is a chance that someone might be taking their last breath in that one space which I'm designing. So that scares me, right? I really want to do my absolute best there. And I asked the doctor, can you please help me? What is it that these patients want? So the doctor told me, see, the light is, in most of the ICUs I go into, the light hits the patient's eye. And that they find it very difficult and they're not able to rest and they're not able to, you know, recover faster. So that started the whole conversation on how to design the lighting in the ICU space. So these are 3 varied case studies which I as a designer have come into in my practice. And I feel that it's a very commonsensical thing, right? Human-centric as a designer, I think we have to start looking at the grassroots of how lighting affects us. and how we can serve our users better. That's about it. Thank you.
I'd just like to add, when you're talking about collaboration, one aspect that we've got, this was more than 15 years ago, 15, 18 years ago, Herman Miller came up with this workstation set with specific task lighting with a very unique design. They had a petal. So they had a stretch fabric and the lighting above that, the task light above that, and the workstation. So it kind of covered all aspects. One was the aesthetic. It looked beautiful. The functionality as a workstation, as a light, everything, and the ergonomics of the furniture, the lighting that is designed for a personalized approach. So all aspects of it kind of look into as one. So I think as designers, that is important that like he said, there are experts for certain things. There are experts for furniture design. We don't need to get into everything, but we need to be able to adapt the right solution for every requirement of a client. So like he said, making the diamond sparkle, we need to make sure that, at the same time, it can't be glaring in our eyes that she can't look at the audience. It's a very fine balance to try and strike. So we need to allow the experts to come into each area of it. And as an architect, that's something that my HOD used to say when we were studying. He always used to say, as an architect, you're like a jack of all trades. You really need to know a little bit of everything. That's the only way you can get the right solution from the right person and then tie it all together. You should know what you need for the space to be able to tie that together. So I think as designers, that is an important thing, important role that we carry.
That's so true, because now, having worked in the lighting for years, I see that I have to have so many hats, so many roles. Lighting designer is one. If I've done residence projects, then you have to be an emotional counselor. Because the husband wants something, the wife wants something. What do you do to place the goals? You can really see the tension in the marriage. And then you need to be a doctor, because like we're doing about health, building health-related wellness spaces. So many different hats. It's like a multifaceted thing. And same thing I'm sure applies for architecture and all these things go right. So we've talked about lifestyles, and the final question which I'm directing to all of you panelists is, looking beyond architecture and design, what lifestyle changes in terms of healthy food options, stress management programs are required for being what they say human-centric? And how can architecture, design, and particularly lighting play a kind of key role in making all these life changes?
Okay. Similar to my first response, I will not be very specific to solutions, because my process is always going underneath to the underlying mechanisms of whatever comes out of my actions and stuff like that. So to take off on certain very key points, what Pavitra was saying, the outdoor spaces, and you were saying about light pollution, right? So if lighting is considered as pollution, why is that? Because it's beyond what is required. So if you're going to design something that is better for all the other inhabitants of an ecosystem, it is in your own interest. We just don't see it. It still is in our interest. It is just when we go beyond and or it's a little short-sighted. So, which is why I try to look at my own actions and practice from an outsider's perspective. I'm seeing myself from outside, which will lead to Vignesh's point of throwing your ego out. So you see a larger picture. Who are all the people involved? It's patients, it's residents, it could be animals, it could be many things. So a deeper pondering of what our actions are, why we do those things, would pertain to a better solution for many disciplines. As an architect specifically, it for me again starts with the space experience, indoor or outdoor, whether it's lighting, first of all, their lighting, how it influences your experience of your everyday life. For example, if you want it to be active space, then I want people to move around the space. If I want them to move around, it's over a time scale. the temporal aspect is very important. We see it as one day. It's over time. It's a longer span of time. Every day you don't want to get bored with the space. These are things that I throw at myself, and it's never ending. So I will stop with that. And
it's always the dimension and spatial of the temporal.
Yes, yes.
Not just spatial.
Yes, very much.
Architects tend to forget it.
Absolutely. Time is a very important one.
Yeah. So when we talk about this human-centric, what happens is like we forget the time. The way how we are working daytime, we are working the nighttime also. Somehow, people are taking chance of all those things. Nightlife is there almost. So what happens is like you have to go along with that. So making the environment bright is our duty now. So whether it is like Usman has said, like okay, they are working in 24/7 shift. The productivity is also going on, and people are having the entertainment or say any cases, it's working. So human centric, now light centric, and it's getting brighter and brighter every day. That is what we are doing. That's how it's coming.
So when he's just described what is actually happening.
Yeah.
But it's happening because we want it. And the question that we all could ponder is stop and then look at ourselves and say, what is it? It's fine. We have to do it. I'm not going to stop partying. But then what does it have to be to address a larger?
So that's what. So we have taken it ahead. So now we are now without the solutions. We have tried solutions. So for example, we have done a project in Pune. It's a big, almost like 3 million square feet of office for a corporate BFSI client. And so these days the corporates are very clear that they want the efficiency as well as the wellness of employees. So they are very specific to what they want, and they give it to us the choice that how we do it. So as architects, what we did is we gave this indoor lighting. Of course, obviously it is indoor, but those lights change over time. So the light color temperature varies over time. So it's like a shift system. So they have a shift system basis. So when they are off, like after 6 hours, the warm whites starts coming from the cool whites. So people that themselves get tired, and then they feel that. So it's like as I was saying, the biology clock ticks in, the melatonin starts in, and so you feel the drowsiness over a period of time, and you get almost settled down. So the efficiency is better, and you're also forced to slow down your efficiency and take a break out of it. So that is how the design. So it's a color changing lighting. Yes, correct. So it gradually changes the color temperature. So that the warm white induces your cooling thing, and you get exactly. So you get around karo. That's it. So that is what the future is moving towards, and that is a corporate. I said that this is going to be followed in your residential because work from home is what is going to be future. So even home lightings are definitely. So artificial lighting with the technology is the next generation thing. But how effective we use is up to us as architects. Correct. It's up to us. That's why I think.
Yeah, I think to continue where he left off what he was talking about, it's very true. The color temperature of the light. We've noticed earlier, maybe 10-12 years ago, very clear directives when we're talking about. I'm specifically talking about workspaces and corporate offices and things like that. So. Very as a standard, people used to look at the color temperature being the cool white, like 5,700 and upwards, and the lux level also 450 lux and upwards. But that trend has been slowly changing, and we've also been trying to educate clients to, you don't need that bright light. You don't because it causes fatigue. A person cannot function at that same energy level throughout the day. It causes fatigue. So they should be able to have downtime within the same space if required. So in which case it's important that we tone it down, meet somewhere midway, like a 4,500 is adequate for an office. That's well and good. You can see your laptop. Most of your thing is only looking at the screen. Why do you need brighter light when what your eyes are focusing on when you're working is your screen, which has enough intensity for you to work? And again, in terms of the lux levels itself, your main work is if it's on paper, if you're drawing, or if it's like an industrial setup. We're designing a garment factory where they're very specific on they should be able to check the color of the fabric. the stitching that they're doing. So the quality of these kind of things, unless you have bright light, it's not. So these are functional requirements where, you know, it is not based on the human centric, it is based on the functional requirement of that space. Whereas in an office, you need to tone it down, you need to look at lesser, it needs to be ambient light, moving from 300 and downwards to 150 in, you know, corridors and things like that, which is absolutely enough. Just this morning, I did a site visit for an office space which was predominantly customer lounge areas. So we had designed the lighting to be maximum of 350 lux and used mostly warm tones, even in terms of the colors and everything, of the finishes. And the client said, you know, this space feels very dark. I will show you the first floor. And he took me to the first floor. It's a proper workstation area. And he says, see, this we just completed. It's so bright. I said, it's not a comparison. I don't want this kind of lighting. This is not the intent of that space itself. So, but the facilities person who's dealing with it not always understands that. We need to, so it is our responsibility to educate the team and make sure that we're all on board and understand the spatial requirement and, like I said at the beginning, the behavior of what you're expecting the person in that space.
And daylight is not static. It's always there.
Yes.
And the best walk that I found out of the rainforest, where I have the leafy walk with all the trees covering.
Yes,
light and shadow that plays. That's what brings that dappled light is what adds the drama to it. And people just need to understand that.
Yeah, a lot of times we argue with clients that we don't need more than 10 lux at a road. It doesn't matter. You don't need it. There's no requirement for more than 10 lux. They're like, how can you see in 10 lux? Because their numbers that they're used to are this 450 lux. So they don't understand when we're coming down to 10 to 15 lux when we're saying it's absolutely enough. It's difficult to get on board.
So I'll just go a little off and say that, you know, for us as a lifestyle to move forward, I think we need to take a couple of steps backward and look at Panchamahabhuta. For me, that's my philosophy of life, that, you know, whenever we design as designers, you know, we take these 5 elements of the earth, you know, we talk about, you know, eating, you know, why do you have to buy imported, you know, why can't buy local produce from the local grocery store? Look at Agni, which is basically daylight, and it's like, if you design with the right orientation, the right amount of window sizing, you know, that gives you the amount of heat that comes in, and that should be more than enough. And if it's taking care of almost, you know, 3/4 of the day, that's enough. And of course, the vayu is about the ventilation. You know, are you allowing enough cross ventilation? You know, many a times we just give one window and we're expecting that should suffice and open the doors. And what you look outside is totally a different thing. You know, that's something. And then of course, the water, the conservation of water, what techniques we are using in terms of flow rates and this one. And the last but not least, ether, which is about space, and which is about the exterior, not only as the life-centric design that we can adopt in all others. So it's important that, you know, be forward, but at the same time just take 2 steps and then leap forward. That's how I would like to put it, and that's where, you know, all these are there and these have been done. It is that over a period of time we have switched on in a different path, but it's time for us to go back, understand, and move forward in the direction that we want to go.
And our colonials have done a very good job of doing that.
Absolutely.
How wide out you go back. It's like that movie where you get Yadast Bhulya hitting on the head.
Actually, as designers, I think, you know, we study all of this, and then but when it gets into the actual business, as usual, it's a different thing. I know I'm speaking from that to say, but there is a change, there is a shift happening. But we want all of us to go strong on that. You know, it's like, you know, how can we differentiate a building in Chennai versus differentiate a building in Jaipur? You know, how do we do that? And that's where as designers we have to. It takes a bit of effort. It is a jack of all trades that you spend a little more time with the client, explain him. But let's do that. You know, once in a while we set the ball rolling with the accommodations like we have in Shankar. I'm sure the next generation is going to take it to the next level. So I'm confident of that.
I need to make sure that this video goes viral.
Absolutely. Thank you.
I think, yeah, everyone's kind of covered most of it, but you mentioned one thing about stress management. So it's very important that we, I mean, at least in our office, we work 5 days, not 6. We try to kind of toned down. We start switching off lights around 6:30 so that people know that they have to report to their team and kind of wind out. So everything is about balance, and it's important that you find that balance. So you mentioned something about eating healthier and living a healthier lifestyle, and finding the time to do all of these things in between our busy, productive lives. It's not always about productivity. It's about finding that balance, and that lifestyle is really important, and lighting has a huge crucial role to play from a holistic point of view. It's there everywhere. At the same time, it's not there. So I think all of us need to understand the beauty of it and enhance the natural aspects of it, and make sure that it comes more as part of our life and our rhythm and biological layer. So I think that's really what the take home from this entire discussion that I can say is all about.
And there are so many takeaways now. It's like I need to go back and watch the recording. There's so many good points. Thank you so much for our last panelist here.
Yeah, last. Thank you. So yes, I mean, enough has been said. I'll just share one small personal note here. So I think talking about lighting, and especially artificial lighting, one of the biggest culprits is smartphones. And the smartphone usage is like it's a boon. It helps us do our work really well, but at the same time, it's really killing us in many directions. One is it's very addictive. And the second is that the amount of light, the blue light which it emits and throws at us is way higher. So more than the space we inhabit, the things which we immediately put closer to our eyes and see, especially we need to be more careful about it. And like, it's a request to all my friends, it is very nice to use the Eye Shield app or the feature in your phone. You can make your phone, the color temperature makes a big difference to your mood, and also helps you sleep faster. So make your phone yellow after 9 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's been a great panel. It's been my honor and my pleasure to be moderating this panel. I've got so many insights today about a subject that I work and I love, lighting. And the only thing I have to say that me being an architect, I can call myself an architect here. So we may all be architects, we may be all jack of all trades. But you put us in a room together, put us on a discussion, and we promise you will change.